Old School Lane Casual Chats is brought to you by oldsschoollane.blogspot.com and is associated with manicexpression.com, thecomicbookcast.com, the Reopen Nickelodeon Studios in Orlando, Florida Facebook page, and the PlayStation YouTube channel. Happy 2014, everyone! Welcome aboard to a brand new episode of Casual Chats. As usual, I am Patricia, and I'm here with a very special guest. You may know him as a staff writer for Gamecola.net, the co-founder of a blog called Exfanding.com, and as well as on YouTube, where he goes by the name Gemini Laser, where he does Mega Man Let's Plays from 1 through 6 and currently going on 7. I've written in my top 100 influences. It is none other than Nathaniel Hoover. Nathaniel, welcome aboard to Casual Chats.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm glad that you were inviting me over to your moon base. It's really lovely. It has a nice view. We can be able to see the Great Wall of China and an asteroid from here.
Thank you. Yes, I do enjoy the view myself.
Yeah, so a couple of questions that I wanted to ask. One of them was, where did you get your influences of doing staff writing and to do discussions on video games?
Well, all of this dates back to my first official full-time job out of college. I was working at a small editing company, 10 people on a good day when everyone decided to show up. And after about a year or so, things started to get really quiet, and there were long spans of time where we weren't doing much of anything. We still had to be in the office, but I was asking around. There was not any work to be done. So having a little bit of extra free time, also having some time over my lunch breaks, I started taking to writing, because I've always enjoyed writing, and writing about video games seemed like the thing to do because I very much enjoy video games. It's my pastime of choice. And finding myself with this extra free time, I just started writing for game FAQs, started contributing some things. Around the same time, I also was chatting with one of my friends there, Alex, at the company, and he and I decided on starting a blog, Exfanding Your Horizons. And so the two of us, we'd sort of had this discussion over lunch one day, like, okay, wait a second, you're a geek, and I'm a geek, but we're both completely different kinds of geeks. We don't have a lot of overlap in our interests. Like, you're into comic books and baseball and different kinds of music, and I'm into differenter kinds of music, and video games and sci-fi and all sorts of different things. Wouldn't it be cool if we started up a blog where we could just talk about our interests and sort of share them, expand other people's horizons of fandoms, and run with that while we've got some free time at work? And that's where Expanding took off, and I was writing a little bit here and there for game FAQs at the time, reviews, just trying to fill in the gaps where they didn't really have much coverage on the site. And then I was approached a little while after that by Paul Franzen, the founder and former editor-in-chief of Gamecola.net, to possibly write for his website. And I thought, cool, sounds good. I love writing about video games, and with a whole team of people would be great as well. So that's really where it started. It started out of sheer boredom and lack of anything to do, and it just turned into this big thing that's become a huge part of my life for the last few years.
Wow, that sounds really interesting. And now, what was the video game that you can recall that introduced you to video games?
Well, my parents had an Atari 2600, So whenever they left it with my grandparents. So whenever I was over to visit my grandparents, I'd dabble around on the Atari 2600 playing Indiana Jones and Haunted House and a few different games, and Demons to Diamonds, Frogger, any of the classics and the ones that everybody's like, what's that game? I've never heard of it. So I played a bunch of those. I also had a few friends when I was in elementary school who had a Nintendo Entertainment System. So I don't recall specifically what the first game was that I played from there, but I dabbled in Mega Man 2 at my one friend's house at one point, and Super Mario Brothers, and then later on, some other different kinds of games. But when I got a Nintendo for myself, I had 3 games right off the bat. It was Super Mario Brothers Duck Hunt, like everybody. I had Gradius, the lovely side-scrolling space shooter game that basically invented the space shooter genre, as far as I know, and Crystallis, the top-down RPG that's sort of in the same vein as Zelda, but very different. So those were the 3 games, and I was lousy at video games and was no good at any of them, but Super Mario Brothers didn't really enjoy. Gradius was a lot of fun to play with my father. We'd do the 2-player mode and get our ships blown up constantly, and we'd never make it past the 3rd stage, but darn it, it was fun. And then played Crystallis and really liked that one, but also couldn't get past the first boss of the game. I didn't realize you needed to level up to a certain point to be able to damage him at all. My small little tiny child brain just couldn't wrap the brain around that concept. Yes. So after a while, I got Game Genie, and then I went back to play all of these games. I almost stopped playing video games altogether because the 3 I had were like, these are too hard, I can't do them. And then Game Genie came along, and then I loved Crystallis, and very much enjoyed Gradius, and Mario was okay when I was doing like the space jump to leap over the flagpole. So I would say that hopefully I'm answering your question now. The Crystallis was probably my first video game love, and the one that really saved the entire hobby for me.
So basically, it wasn't a particular game, it was a peripheral, which was the Game Genie that helped you.
Yeah, because up until that point, it was fun to play around with them for a while, but I never got really dedicated because I was never good enough. I was willing to put in the time, I just didn't improve enough to be able to get anywhere. But having Game Genie, that ability to have infinite magic points or extra starting gold or any of those little things that give me an edge, I was able to play the game long enough to see the later parts in it. I'm like, okay, this is really cool, I want to get back here, and to become practiced enough without the penalty of dying and starting over every single time. I was just starting to learn some new techniques, so that helped to get me along to the point where I could start to hold my own, and I eventually did go back and play it without Game Genie, and said, wow, it's a totally different game experience. But from what I've learned through cheating, not that this is a life lesson that I really want to impress on people, but now that I've gotten far enough to know what to expect with this game, I'm so much better starting off without the training wheels now.
Yeah, I can understand that, because when you go from something like the Atari 2600, which, are very short, simple games, and then you go with something as complex as, say, Super Mario Brothers or Crystallis or Gradius or Zelda or anything like that, it does become very jarring. Mm-hmm. It's like, you went on training wheels on your bicycle all your life, and then the next step, you go on a big motorcycle. So I can understand that, and, I can understand why some people would be a little bit jarring about using a Game Genie, but pretty much in your perspective, it pretty much saved you from being a gamer, so with that...
Well, not saved me from being a gamer, saved me from not being a gamer.
Well, yeah, saved you from not being a gamer, that's what I meant, but yeah, definitely, I feel that there are some aspects in which Game Genie can be your friend, and in a way, it was definitely quite helpful for you.
Well, and Game Genie in and of itself is almost like a game. There's that joy of inputting different codes at the main screen to try and mess up the game and do funny things and try new things that you've never done before. The Mega Man games, as I've demonstrated in one or two of my videos, are great for playing around with Game Genie codes, because then you can suddenly start moonwalking, you can mess up the music, there's lots of different fun things you can do, aside from just cheating at the game to make it easier for you. There's lots of fun effects, so Game Genie in and of itself is an entertainment experience on its own.
Yeah, definitely. I always enjoyed watching those videos when you would enter in the Game Genie or you would do your Mega Man glitches. I always found those to be really hilarious.
I always enjoyed those.
Mega Man is not the only game that you play a lot of. You play also King's Quest, there's also Space Quest, and, out of all of them that you decided to do your Let's Plays on, why Mega Man?
So this goes back to Gamecola. This connects back to Gamecola. So I'm a fresh staff writer for Gamecola and starting to contribute things. And I say, you know what? I'm looking back through the archives. We've reviewed like 2 Mega Man games. This needs to be rectified. So I started this plan to start reviewing all of the different Mega Man games, at least of the main series anyhow. And so I started writing all of those, and I said, this is fun and enjoyable. And then Michael Gray, one of my fellow staff writers, started putting videos onto our brand new YouTube channel, gc.net, for which I'm now the administrator.
Nice.
And I was watching his videos and said, okay, he's decent. I think I can do this better. I've been playing these games much longer. I'm more familiar with them, and I really love these games. Almost as a sort of response to his videos, I posted Mega Man 1. It took me, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, something like that. No more than a month. Now it's at the point where I'm like 1 month per video, maybe if we're lucky. Back then it was a couple of days to a week for a video. So I created my playthrough of the original Mega Man and wasn't going to do audio commentary at first, but I wasn't convinced that the video on its own would be interesting enough for anybody to want to watch, so I figured, throw some commentary in there, so if the video is boring, then maybe the commentary will hook somebody's interest. So I released those videos on the Gamecola YouTube channel initially, and put them on my own personal channel, because I wanted to have knowing that this was going to be a series, I was going to do Mega Man 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to match Michael's videos. I figured that I'd put all of the Mega Man specific ones in one place on my own channel, and that way if I ever felt like doing anything else, I could have my own channel and not need to burden the Gamecola channel with it. So after a little while, it didn't make sense to have them on 2 separate channels, so I just removed them from the Gamecola channel somewhere around Mega Man 3 or 4, I'm recalling, and then all of them were exclusively on my personal channel, and then I was contributing anything that wasn't Mega Man to the Gamecola channel. And right. So it just sort of took off from there, that it's been a dedicated Mega Man channel ever since.
Yeah, definitely, and I've really enjoyed it. Out of all the people that I've seen play Mega Man, yours is probably the best that I've ever seen.
Well, thank you very much.
I can say that whenever you do a lot of the tricks, or whenever that you shoot a lot of the enemies, I know that it takes a lot of practice to do, because on PlayStation, that is the new YouTube channel that is doing a lot of Let's Plays, that is associated with Comic Book Cast, I was the one who was playing the Mega Man games. I played Mega Man 2 and 3, and mine is nowhere near as good as yours.
Well, it's a matter of, number one, I've been playing these games since I was in single digits. Started with Mega Man 4, and had, as I said, I dabbled in Mega Man 2 before that, but Mega Man 4 was the first one that I owned, and then I got 2, I got 5, I started borrowing, and then trading games around. I had the whole NES collection eventually, some of the Super Nintendo games, and then, really in more recent years started getting caught up on the broader scope of Mega Man. But I've been playing them continuously since I was about, technically 6, but more like 7 years old. So I have been playing these games extensively for a very long time, so I've just got that natural practice under my belt. But also when I sit down to play these games, I say, okay, look, anybody can do a Let's Play. Anybody can sit down and just say, I'm going to play this game. And sometimes it comes out really great, because there's random things that can happen while you're playing. There's amazing feats that you can pull off without practice. And some of the commentary that comes improvisationally can be fantastic. So there is really something to be said for just doing Let's Plays off the cuff. They can be really fun. But also, I'm looking around, I'm like, that's most of what people are doing. They're doing Let's Plays and just sit down and let's play a game. I wanted to do something a little different, saying, well, and part of this was because the recording software I was using at the time, Cam Studio, only let me record for 10, maybe 15 minutes before pooping out on me, so by necessity, I could only really do one stage at a time. So I said, well, if I can't do this from start to finish all in one clip, I might as well make each stage as good as I can possibly make it. So I would sit down and practice for a couple hours, couple days, however long it took me to really be satisfied with how the stage turned out. And it didn't need to be perfect, just as long as it was entertaining. Because sometimes it's also funny for things to really not go well. I've seen videos that are supremely impressive because the person doesn't get hit, doesn't waste a shot, speeds through the level, really doing a true speed run. And those are impressive too. But I've been striving to just do whatever is most entertaining within my abilities, and a lot of practice comes into that, both to get the things that I want to do right, and also to establish I can't do some of these moves consistently, so I'm going to need to come up with something else that's at least partially entertaining. All of the really good stuff that's in my bonus videos are usually things that I just couldn't duplicate.
I feel that with your Let's Plays, even though that you do spectacular at times, there are some moments in which you do mess up. But I always find those to be entertaining as well, especially when you do like a mega pun, or when you just basically just scream out and saying that you did mess up, but you always come back to it and you always just have fun with it. It's not only commentary on the game itself, but it also can be fun, and you can also pull up some interesting facts that maybe some people don't know about it. You know, it's not crude, it's not rash, it's not all filled up with jokes that are inappropriate for small children, you know, like, say, Game Grumps or something like that. That's what makes your Mega Man games, your Let's Plays, stand out.
Well, thank you. I mean, I try and, it's the same thing with my writing, it's the same thing with my video recording. I try and produce stuff that I myself would want to read or would want to watch. And it's just, the following has grown because apparently there are a lot of other people who have similar interest and would like to see the kinds of things that I would like to see. So it's been encouraging for people to come over and leave some really wonderful comments about the kinds of things that I'm doing or what I'm not doing even. And it's been a nice motivator to just keep on doing the kinds of things that I love to do because there are other people who love to watch it as well.
Now, when you do commentary, do you have a script or is it ad-libbed?
Originally, when I sat down to record Mega Man 1, I started to script it out, because I've done improv in the past, and I'm okay at it, depending. I really need to be, you know, in the zone, but I started, just to be safe, to write out a script for the original Mega Man. And the first minute and a half, 2 minutes or so of commentary in my very first Mega Man video is basically entirely scripted, all of it. And then after that, I started to say, you know what, it is taking me forever to write, to physically type out everything that I want to say, edit it, revise it, get it the way I want it, and then execute it, because writing it's one thing, then I need to say it within the right amount of time and the right inflection. I'm just saying, this is taking way too long, so I'm just going to watch through the video. I'm going to get a general sense of the kinds of things I want to say. And actually, originally, I just recorded the video and started speaking the entire time, and there'd usually be long pauses and babbling, and then occasionally one little piece of something that I could save. And I'd do that a couple of times just until the commentary started to form itself. I might have a couple of ideas of, oh, I want to talk about that when that thing happens, or, oh, that would be really fun to make a joke. I'll need to come up with a joke, but that's a spot for a joke. And then, you know, I'd have these little lights, I guess, that I'd want to hit, and then I'd start to form things around it. So little by little, I've gotten better at forming commentary. I don't know that I've necessarily gotten faster, because as I say more things, it gets harder and harder to come up with something that I haven't said yet, or a new presentation of something that I have said. So it's been something of a challenge, but every once in a while, if it's something that I continuously trip over, that I always start out and go, blah, 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 then I'll start to write it out, and I'll have a mini script of 2 or 3 sentences, and I'll just read the script as I'm saying it. But for the most part, it's just I'm winging it, and then re-recording to get the winging slightly tweaked to where I want it to be.
So, Nathaniel, I have another question. If you weren't doing any Let's Plays of Mega Man, what video games would you see yourself doing Let's Plays of, that you feel that you're confident enough to give advice or give tips and tricks and witty content?
I mean, anything that I would be doing, you'll see on the gc.net channel. So Crystallis, I'm dropping things here. I just did a playthrough of the Game Boy Color version of Crystallis, which apparently nobody on the internet wanted to play beyond the first 20 minutes. So I went through that. So that's probably the kinds of things that I would be doing, whatever you see on the Gamecola YouTube channel. So probably the Space Quest games, at least a couple of them, which I also did a playthrough of Space Quest Zero, which was lots of fun to do.
Yeah, I saw that. That was really enjoyable, even though I've never played any of the Space Quest games.
Oh, very cool. Well, you're missing out. If you like adventure games at all, they're definitely worth a shot. But I would probably be doing adventure games, more of them. I'd probably be doing some of my Flash games to catch up with my Flash Flood column that I at least used to do for Gamecola. I haven't done one in a while. So there's other games that I would be playing, possibly. Maybe some of the Metroid games. I had wanted to do a Chrono Trigger one at one point, but everyone and their brother has done Chrono Trigger,
right.
So probably not. But, although I don't think I've ever seen a New Game Plus playthrough of Chrono Trigger, only from the very beginning, so that would be something different. But, honestly, I probably wouldn't really be making videos if it weren't for Mega Man, because sitting down initially looking at Michael Gray's videos and saying, okay, I want to do these now, if it weren't for that, I wouldn't be making videos at all. Nothing would have really prompted me to go do that. And even if I had finished my Mega Man project in a reasonable amount of time, I was expecting, this will take me a couple weeks, couple months tops, and then here it's been several years, and I only just got Mega Man 6 done not too long ago. So if it weren't for that, I don't know. I don't know if I'd be doing videos. I've got so many other side projects and so many other things that I enjoy doing. I'd be doing more writing. I'd be doing more game playing and other things out elsewhere. More than likely.
Wow. That's actually kind of interesting. Not seeing any videos if it wasn't for Mega Man.
Well, I mean, I like doing the videos. I enjoy doing the videos. They are a lot of work because, again, even when I'm not doing the sit-down, let's show off, let's practice and do this right, even when I'm just doing a off-the-cuff recording, the way I had been doing it for the Space Quest playthrough, the Crystallis playthrough, I just sat down and recorded the video straight, but then the commentary I'd been practicing a couple of times and then going back and re-recording and editing and trying to make it sound good. Live streaming is actually where I might be going in the future. I still plan on doing the Mega Man videos at least, but any of the other ones, I don't know. I like the idea of sitting down, playing a video game, talking about it, and then boom, you're done. All of the extra time spent editing and recording, because I'm something of a perfectionist, does take a lot of time. So it is a lot of effort for a little bit of product, although the product itself is often good enough quality that other people really like it, and it's worth the time that goes into it. But it's always that gamble of, I'm going to spend the next 3 hours or the next 3 weeks working on this project, and is it going to be worth it in the end? Is it going to be because I'm really interested in it? Am I really excited about this? Is this how I want to be spending my time? Is it really fun? Or is it, well, I thought this would be a good idea, and I know some people would enjoy it, and I know, people would like to see this kind of thing, but how many other things could I be doing in the same span of time that would have a bigger impact, or that would be more fun or less hair-raising, hair-pulley-outy, whatever the phrase is that I'm looking for. So it's always a balance trying to find the free time.
I think it's hair-pulling.
Hair-pulling, that'll do.
Yes. I can understand, because there are some games in which it is rage-inducing, and, doing that plus doing commentary, it does boil down to a lot of work, especially if you're ad-libbing, and most of the times they just do a lot of random humor, but I feel that with your work, it's always attention to detail on which jokes are going to be coming out, at what time, and on what moment that you're going to be saying a particular pun, or you're going to be talking about tips and tricks about how to do this particular jump, or how to use this weapon, or so on and so forth.
I'm nodding my head in approval and agreement. I know you can't hear my brain rattling around from where you are, but I'm nodding my head.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. Now, here's another... So I was wondering, I already know that Mega Man 4 is your favorite Mega Man game. Here's another one.
Who told you that?
You did.
Oh, did I? Okay.
Yes. You told that in your Mega Man 4 Let's Play, and you just told me like a few minutes ago. So I was wondering, what are your least favorite Mega Man games, and Mega Man games that you feel that are underrated and overrated?
Underrated and overrated is a little bit tough, because once you get outside of Mega Man 2 and 3, which are the only ones anyone ever talks about, then it's I don't know, it's hard to gauge the general opinion of people, because I hear so few reviews and so few comments about a lot of the other games, aside from 2 and 3, and the ones that I do hear are usually very individual. It's this one person really likes this game, or this one person really dislikes this game. I don't have a finger on the pulse of the majority for any of the other ones, but I always feel like 2 and 3 have gotten a lot more attention and praise than they necessarily deserve. Not that they're bad games, they're still very good games, but but in the grand scheme of everything Mega Man, I don't feel like they should be on as high a pedestal as they are. My Mega Man 3 playthrough, admittedly, is excessively whiny and complainy. I do get better by the end, but it's all of that disappointment and frustration with the game and how much better it could have been. Again, it's not bad, but I see so much potential for 3 and so many flaws with it that people who grew up with it just overlook. They don't seem to mention about it. So I look at 3 and I say, it's an okay game. There's a lot of great ideas, the music is fantastic, a lot of the creativity, throwing in Rush, throwing in Proto Man, throwing in the slide, a lot of new stuff that's great. Graphics are better than anything else before it, but there are a lot of places where it still falls short, and it could have been so much more awesome. Not having an intro cutscene, for example. I feel like you're really missing something, getting only the second half of the plot. So little things like that. So I feel like 3 gets a lot more praise, and 2 is sort of like the holy grail of video gaming. It's the best game for the NES. It's the best game in the world, and it's very good. But I feel like a lot of people grew up on Mega Man 2 and have forgotten what it's like to play 2 for the first time, have forgotten what it's like to get to that part in Wily 1 where you need to use your platforms to cross the gap to climb up the ladder, but then you've run out of weapon energy for it. And the only way to get more weapon energy is to grind against the most obnoxious enemies to grind against until you finally get enough power-ups to give it a second chance and hope you don't mess it up. Some of the puzzle-solving elements are really creative, but if you mess them up, completely wreck the game. The final boss, for example. You run out of bubble lead, and you can't take out the final boss. And if you've got 9 lives in reserve and you've got 4 E-tanks, you have to waste all of them because you ran out of weapon energy and can't refill them in the stage. Like, there's little planning things that if you were used to the game and you know how to play the game and you're really good at it, you don't even think about them. But it's more of a, from a design standpoint, more than like a fun factor standpoint, that there's some parts of those 2 games, 2 and 3, that I feel really fall short and fall short hard, despite all of the other amazing, wonderful things about them that everybody thinks about when they think about the game. As far as games that I don't like, 3 is lower on my list. It's still good, but it's much lower on my list than the others. Mega Man 10 was supremely disappointing for me. The first Mega Man Game Boy game is too hard for its own good, too unforgiving, and Mega Man Extreme 2 is probably my least favorite out of any Mega Man. Favorite doesn't even apply. I don't like it, period. Also, I'm colorblind, and the color-coded final boss is impossible, and I still haven't beaten him. And Mega Man Powered Up, I was really disappointed with Powered Up. I like the concept. I don't mind the goofy art. I like the replay value of it. But the new challenges, I love the original Mega Man. It's probably my second, possibly my third favorite, depending on my mood. And they take all of the tight, well-planned level architecture in their new gameplay mode and just scramble it around like somebody said, oh, hey, we got a level editor. I'm going to throw random stuff all over the place, and we're not going to bother to play test it, and hopefully it'll be fun. And that just completely wrecked the whole thing for me. So that's my long-winded blathering about the ups and mostly downs of Mega Man.
And which games do you feel are the most overlooked?
Well, 4, for one. I mean, obviously.
Yes, I know that.
But basically any of them that aren't 2 or 3, really, because so many people say 2 is the best game, or 3 is the best game, or 2 and 3 are the best game, and then there was the rest of the series. Like, people will stop after the first 2 or 3 games and not even acknowledge the rest of the franchise. And there are so many games that have so much value, that are worthwhile, that do offer new things to the series, that offer new challenges, that take familiar old challenges and turn them on their head. There's so many different fun things that continues to build on itself. It learns from its mistakes. It tries to smooth things out. It tries to streamline things. And sometimes it succeeds, sometimes it fails, but the entire rest of the series after 2 and 3, I would say, are probably criminally overlooked.
I think the reason why a lot of people overlook 4, 5, and 6 is because they came out year after year after year, and pretty much a lot of people were getting burned out by it. So I think maybe that's why a lot of people feel that it's not as great as 2 and 3, because you have Mega Man 1, and while it was groundbreaking and popular for its time, there were a couple of things about it that made it really difficult, or it wasn't as successful as all the other previous games that came out in 87. You had Zelda that came out in 87 for North America, Metroid, Castlevania, so it had a lot of contenders. And Mega Man 2, I think that, after all those games came out and it was able to basically improve on everything that the first one did, I think that's why a lot of people just loved it so much. And I can understand 3, it was 1990 and it was almost like around the end of the NES. This basically was like their last hurrah for a lot of people, and it did a lot of the new enhancements like you mentioned before, Rush, Proto Man, the slide, and not to mention the fantastic music and all the things that you can do for a level, and just some of the weapons were also really good, and also the inclusion of the previous Robot Masters from 2 coming into 3. And I can understand why a lot of people also feel that that is also one of the best. And 4, 5, and 6, I guess, because Mega Man was becoming popular with it coming year after year after year, and then, of course, the SNES coming out. So I think that maybe if 4, 5, and 6 would have came out on the Super Nintendo, and maybe if they would have spaced it out, I think more people would be discussing about it than what they do today.
Well, you know what else it is? It's the novelty factor as well. A lot of people, I think, miss the original Mega Man because no one ever seems to talk about playing the original Mega Man, though obviously it was popular enough to warrant a sequel. But people talk about Mega Man 2 or 3, and they talk about how groundbreaking it was. You could choose any boss you wanted in any order. You could steal their weapons. You had all of these different utilities that, so many unique new things that people had never seen in any other video game. And then you get Mega Man 3, which brings even more new things to the table that never showed up in 2. And so people have this expectation, if this is what they're walking into, of this is totally groundbreaking. That is one of the defining features of the Mega Man series, is that it's novel. And then you look at the next 10, 15, 20 years of Mega Man, and it's really more of the same. It's not usually all that groundbreaking. A new series, the X series, the Zero series, the Legend series, will do something new.
Right.
But after that, it's sort of improving upon, tweaking new things, throwing in a new feature, taking out a feature. But looking at the greater series, novelty doesn't really define Mega Man. It's just a nicety if it shows up. And so I think a big part of the reason why people overlook the entire rest of the series is they played 4 or they played 5 or they played 6, and they said, well, this is just more of the same. I demand new things. I demand, crazy, wild, off-the-wall new stuff like they do with the Mario games. Mario reinvents itself. Well, up until recently, since New Super Mario Brothers, they've sort of played it safe and just taken that formula and repackaged it a few times. But up until New Super Mario Brothers, it was every single sequel was usually pretty different. You go from Mario 1 to 2, okay, 2 wasn't actually a Mario game to start with, but, Mario 3 is still completely different. Super Mario World, completely different. Like, people look at that and they say, novelty, and that's how it was with Mega Man. Mega Man was, oh, wow, radically different every time. And then 4 was kind of the same, and then 5 was kind of the same as 4, and 6 was kind of the same as 5 and 4, and, oh, well. I was looking for novelty, but this, who cares about great music and great graphics and wonderful gameplay and creative special weapons? I mean, it feels the same as all the other games, which I like, so I'm going to write off the whole series because it's just like other things that I like.
Yeah, I can understand that, especially since people are expecting Mega Man to be just as groundbreaking as it was the first 3 times, and they're expecting 4 to be just as great when they seem to overlook the fact of, what about the Mega Buster? That was when it was first introduced. And another thing, what about remember Dr. Cossack's stage, in which there was actually a scrolling section? That's never been happened before, or even since then. We had different Robot Masters, obviously, like you do with every game, but at least they were different. The weapons varied as compared to, Mega Man 3, in which they pretty much all function the same. Yeah. And not to mention that Dr. Cossack, it was a different villain as opposed to Dr. Wily, even though Dr. Wily did turn out to be the villain in the end, but it was something different. It had a different vibe to it.
Yeah, I've learned over the years that expectation plays a huge role in people's appreciation of things. Because if you, for example, there have been plenty of times where I've been absent-minded going to sit down and watch something on Netflix or whatever, and I go out and I grab a drink and I sit down and I am expecting it to be, Coca-Cola in my glass. And I accidentally, actually intentionally poured myself a glass of milk, but I've forgotten that I have milk in my glass. I'm expecting it's Coke. And when I pick it up and drink it, I'm like, oh, what is this? This is no good whatsoever. Well, I like milk and I like Coke, but I was expecting one and not the other, and therefore I hated it until reality and expectations started to match up again. I said, oh, right, I poured myself a glass of milk. Duh. So I feel like that happens frequently with video games as well, is people look at some game and they say, oh, this is going to be awesome. I want it to be like this, or I really like this one part, and I hope they do it, and then they don't do it. And people say, well, because of XYZ, I don't like it anymore, because I expected it to be different. And they completely invalidate any of the merits of the game, because whatever great stuff is there doesn't match what they were hoping would be there. And therefore, the game's awful, it's terrible.
Right. I can understand that, especially when people expect so much of everything. It's like when Resident Evil 5 came out, and everybody expected it to be just as good as Resident Evil 4, and then they were all disappointed about it. Or when Metroid Other M came out, and it was going to be, kind of like a 2D/3D adventure game, and everybody expected it to be just as good as Super Metroid, or everybody expected it to be as good as the Prime series, and everybody was disappointed about that one. And yeah, there's just a lot of moments in which people are they're overhyping something so much, and then when they do get to the final product, they just are so disappointed. At some point, some of the things are really nitpicky. They just don't see the whole picture.
Though, to be fair about Metroid Other M, even when you take away the expectation, there's still a lot not to like about the game.
Oh, I hate that game. I'm sorry. I hate that game. But I'm sorry. I try to defend Metroid Other M because I'm a huge Metroid fan, but I'm sorry. I'm not going to defend it. But I can understand why, when it first came out. I mean, I was excited about it. I was building up my expectations for it because I played throughout the Prime series, and I played through the classic Metroid games so I can be able to get ready for Other M. And everything about it, I just felt was so low beyond my expectation. And, there are some games that don't really deserve to have that kind of bashing, like, just like the classic Mega Man series. I think that 6 is a really great game. I really enjoyed 6 and all the different things that it does, but at the same time, everybody else is talking about how great 2 and 3 was, which I do admit that I do like them. Don't get me wrong.
There's nothing wrong with liking those games. I mean, we're all Mega Man fans here, so everybody's got a favorite, and the games are still good.
Yes.
It's just when they are good to the exclusion of the entire rest of the series, then that makes you raise an eyebrow and say, well, are you really a Mega Man fan, or do you just really like Mega Man 2?
Exactly. You have to have played at least maybe more than just Mega Man 2 and 3 in order for you to appreciate the series. With the classic series, sure, but, try to delve into, more of the series, like the X series, or the Zero series, or the Legend series, Star Force. Try to broaden what Mega Man is. I mean, it's not just one particular game series. I mean, it's just an entire franchise of entirely different games, and maybe there are some people out there who do praise 2 and 3, and maybe that's it, or maybe they have played the other games, but it didn't met up to their expectations. For example, I played Mega Man 9 around 2008, and I was expecting it to be not as good as, say, all the other previous games, because, a lot of people were expecting it to be this great game to bring back the series, and I did enjoy it very much. And then when I played 10, it's like, oh, they're just stepping back to square one of... they're just playing it too safe. They're just giving the exact same thing that all the other previous Mega Man games did. And yeah, but I guess what Nathaniel and I are trying to point out is that, just because you like a game, that's fantastic, but in order for you to appreciate a franchise, you have to have played more than just the games that everybody seems to be gushing over.
Yeah, I mean, I look at Final Fantasy. I have given Final Fantasy a fair shot. I have played, not in order, but I have played through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I've played through Mystic Quest, and I've played through Final Fantasy Adventure for the Game Boy. And there are a couple games that I like well enough. I really like 4. I really like 7. 7 was the last one out of all of those that I played, like 15 years too late. But even after everything had been spoiled and all of the hype had passed, I still found that I really enjoyed the game. Still not perfect in my mind. There's some things that I would change about it, but I still really enjoyed it. Despite all of the hype, all of the expectations, and no surprises a couple of surprises, but having a really good idea of, at least story-wise, what I was in for. So, I enjoy a couple of the Final Fantasy games, but I've given an honest chance to all of them, coming in really with no expectations, just, it says Final Fantasy in the title, and I know I like RPGs, I know I like a couple of these, I'll give this one a shot. And I guess I can say I'm a Final Fantasy fan to some extent because there are enough games that I like, but there's some of them and I'm like, why? I don't want to play this again. I don't want to play your stupid card game. I don't want to learn the rules of this. And so I just sort of shrug and say, well, I tried it. I know a lot of people love this game or kind of like it, but it's under my belt. It's exposure that I've had, but I'm not going to berate the entire series or say everything was downhill after Final Fantasy 1 just because I only sort of like the rest of the games because I'm not really a true Final Fantasy fanboy. I like a couple of them. Ta-da.
What are your first impressions of Mighty Number 9?
So I did write. I'm not going to be that guy like go read my book. I'm not going to say go read my post. I did write a post about this on Gamecola, a joint post on Gamecola, airing some of my thoughts about this. I'm sort of an idealist. I like the idea that Capcom would just continue making Mega Man games and everyone would be happy, and that's not really the way it is right now. That Mighty Number 9 is filling the gap where there should be a brand new Mega Man game. Keiji Inafune leaves the company and says, look, in my mind, I don't know if this is actually how it is, but is effectively saying, well, if you guys aren't going to make a real Mega Man game, I will. And pulls together a bunch of other people who have worked on Mega Man games before and should by all rights be making a Mega Man game right now. And then all of them sit down and start to work on what could really be a very exciting, wonderful, fantastic game. It might be superb, but I can't really get excited about it because it's not, hey, this is this new game. It's sort of a spiritual successor to Mega Man, and we're really excited about it because this is the game we've always wanted to make. It feels to me more like, well, I wish I could be making an authentic Mega Man game right now, but I can't, so here's the next best thing, but we're going to make it as good as possible. So it's a challenge for me to get geared up for it just because of the situation behind it, of which I am very ill-informed. But I feel like it'll probably be a great game. And I'm sure that if it's incredibly successful, it'll hopefully send a message to Capcom saying, either A, hire some of these people back to make a Mega Man game, or B, start making good Mega Man games again. But I can't really get excited about it until I've actually played it and say, wow, this is wonderful, or oh yeah, it's pretty good, or I want Mega Man again.
Yeah, when I saw the trailer of well, actually, it was more like the documentary of Mighty Number 9 and the little video that had the Kickstarter in it. I was intrigued by it, and I was interested about the art and the music that was playing, and I thought to myself, if I see a trailer or if I see gameplay of it, maybe I'll get more interested in it. But right now, I'm really excited about Mighty Number 9, and I'm interested in the idea as well, especially since nowadays a lot of people feel that all the mainstream games are starting to whittle down, and now more independent games are becoming more popular, and they're becoming more of the future. So it's like, if you're not a big fan of maybe Mario, or maybe if the adventure series that were on PC are pretty much dead, then wait for an independent studio to be making something like that, based off of the classic games that they used to, and, go from there.
Yeah, I mean, indie games are definitely picking up. They're getting a lot more mainstream recognition, and there are a lot of indie games with zero budget, which are just as good, if not better than, ones that have hundreds and thousands and millions and bajillions and made-up quantities of money going into it. But I lost my train of thought. My other thing, because I'm a curmudgeon like this, is I sort of have this thing against Kickstarter. I mean, I think Kickstarter's a great idea, but I'm also concerned that indie developers have... yes, they're taking advantage of the kindness and generosity of the fans who really want to see these games, but I feel like we've sort of lost the business model of, we make something, and if it's good, it makes money, and you pay us, and then we make more. I'm sort of reluctant for me to shell out my money to see things that other people want to make and then need to entice me to buy. It's strange to me thinking about, yes, we have this great idea for a game, we've got a whole staff, we've got a company, but you need to pay us if you want to see it. That's sort of like saying, yes, we're selling groceries today, we've got carrots and apples and vegetables, but if you want to eat today, you're going to need to pay us, and then sometime a couple months or a couple years down the road, then we'll have a grocery store for you. I don't know. It feels strange to me that we are funding the video games that we want to see, and it's not just people running businesses normally and then making games. That's just odd to me.
I understand. A couple of times in your videos, you were talking about how in some levels or in some stages, you feel like you can be able to improve, or you feel that, it had lost potential. Now, if you were to make a fan-made Mega Man game, where you can create any Robot Master you want, you can create any stages you want, you can create any story you want, what would it be about?
Well, a good magician never gives away his secrets. I've been toying with the idea of possibly learning Game Maker, I think, is one of the programs that's out there, or something, and possibly trying my hand at making a Mega Man game at some point. So I wouldn't want to spoil anything if I ever do get around to doing it, but I would love to see a game that starts to go in the direction of connecting the classic series to the X series. We don't need one game that all of a sudden X and Zero are involved in everything, but just starts to lay the groundwork for another one or two sequels that conclude in, like a trilogy of sorts, I guess, that conclude in a direct connection to the X series, and here we've ended the classic Mega Man series. There is no more. Anything else is just a little side story, but there's no true sequels because now we have directly flowed into the X series. So I'd like, story-wise, to see something that starts to build in that direction, and a story that starts to pull in different elements. Mega Man 8, we had Evil Energy. We had Duo. And then when do we ever hear from them again? Just this random, just flash in the pan, and then we have nothing to do with them ever again. We had Star Droids. Star Droids were great. Something other than Dr. Wily for a change, even though Dr. Wily was in that game. I would love to see more of them. So we've established that the Mega Man universe has space stuff going on. Mega Man 3, Mega Man was supposed to be going to mining worlds. We've established that it's more than just Earth. So I would love to see some of those plot points about the outer space side of the Mega Man universe come into play and be relevant again. Any of those little plot points, the end of Mega Man 7, where, spoiler, Mega Man is just about to kill Dr. Wily. Like, where did that piece of aggression come from? Why is he suddenly so docile in Mega Man 8? I'd love to see a little bit of continuity there of, did he get reprogrammed to be gentler, kindler, or kindler? Wow. Or, what happened? So just the little pieces of storyline. What has Dr. Cossack been up to this whole time? I would love to see just little connections back to the other storylines that started to get developed or were developed in full, but then were just dropped and never talked about again. So that's really what I'd like to see in a new Mega Man game, just bringing back some of the things that we just sort of forgot about.
Yeah, definitely, and I think it was the X series that pretty much got a cohesive story going on. Well, the classic series
cohesive enough for a while, then they started to say ridiculous things.
Yeah, I know, but you get what we're saying. Basically, sure. That the X series was the first one in the Mega Man series that pretty much told a cohesive story for a while, and then it pretty much just went wherever. I have no idea. It was really convoluted. But yes, the classic series, I think that, for its time when it came out, it was all about gameplay first, story second. Mm-hmm. And, since it is 2014, a lot of people feel that it's now the other way around. Story first, and then gameplay second. If either Capcom or Keiji Inafune does, something similar to Mighty Number 9 of making a cohesive story, then that would be great to see. But if not, then I would love to see how you put them together. It would be really interesting if maybe Mega Man fights a prototype of Zero, or maybe he sees blueprints of Zero, or...
Well, actually, you do see blueprints of Zero. I believe that's the second Mega Man arcade game, one of the many endings that you can get there. There is a point, I think it's Base storming in at the end of the game to threaten Dr. Wily. You can see blueprints for Zero in the background. So that is already in there. And I believe, I played 30 minutes of it. There's a fan game, Mega Man Unlimited, which I've heard tell has Zero somewhere in the end. Possibly. So these are ideas that have been floating around. This isn't totally novel. It's just we haven't really followed through on them yet.
Right. And speaking of fan games, there have been a lot of Mega Man fan games. One that you did recently with your wife, Z Saber, was Mega Pony.
Yep.
That was really, really interesting. Taking My Little Pony mixed with Mega Man, that's really creative.
What was so impressive about it, I've seen an episode of My Little Pony. I've walked through the room while my wife has been watching things. I have friends who are obsessed with My Little Pony. So I have a passing understanding of the series, but not really being a fan myself. But being a big Mega Man fan, it was really interesting to see how successful the developer was at combining the two, because my wife was telling me that it felt authentically like My Little Pony, and it played like a real honest-to-goodness Mega Man, and as I was mentioning in the playthrough, does a better job of blending two different properties equally than Street Fighter vs. Mega Man, which is basically, well, it plays like a Mega Man game, but we basically really want it to be entirely Street Fighter, and then random monsters sort of all over the place. Like, this was a very good mesh of a lot of the little things that you look for in My Little Pony, and a lot of the little things that you look for in Mega Man, and just blending them together. And if we have indie developers doing things like that, it's just baffling to me why we can't have professional developers doing things like that. They should start hiring the indie game developers to make the next Mega Man games, I think.
Yeah, that would be a great idea, especially now.
I'd volunteer.
Yeah, I would love to see you volunteer, because you definitely have a knack for everything Mega Man. I would love to see you get on the indie developing company and, craft your own Mega Man game, and maybe someday at some point, maybe we can have like Mega Man crossover mixtures that actually make sense. Like, I mean, Street Fighter versus Mega Man, it did kind of make sense, especially since they're both made by Capcom, but I think it was focusing too much on Street Fighter and less on Mega Man. Maybe we can do some, other Capcom game in the future and maybe mesh that with Mega Man, or maybe something else in general. Maybe we can have Adventure Time with Mega Man, or we can have Star Wars with Mega Man or something.
Well, I don't know if you saw my videos or my review long time ago on Gamecola, but there is a Mega Man versus Metroid and a Mega Man versus Ghost and Goblins Flash game.
I did see that, and I really enjoyed
which are very good.
Yes, I did see those. I did see the Ghost and Goblins one, even though it was really short. And it looked really easy, but I have seen those, but those were like a while ago. Something new would be nice to have implicated in. Just a few more questions. What advice would you give to somebody who wants to start off doing Let's Play channels of a game they love, or if they want to start their own blogging channel? What advice would you give them if they want to get started?
Like I was saying before, for me, I write the stuff and I record the stuff that I myself would want to see. So, first and foremost, if you're not invested in it, don't bother. It's got to be something that you want to do, that you love to do, that you're willing to put the time and effort into, and would like to see yourself. Because, otherwise, who are you trying to please? Who are you trying to make this for? Have fun with it. But I think a lot of people also expect there to be like overnight popularity, and then they judge themselves if people aren't commenting wildly and liking left and right and reposting and all of these different things, that they're a failure. No, it takes a long time for any word to get out. So promote yourself as well. Content is king. Have good content first. Do something unique, or do something better than anybody else, or just make it entertaining, whatever you're doing. If you're just saying, oh, well, I kind of like Zelda, and I'm just going to go, put a Zelda video up there, okay, that's fine. Are you doing it for yourself because you're having fun with it? Okay, great. If you're doing it because, well, you kind of want to do a Let's Play of something, there are lots of other games out there, and there's lots of people who have played Zelda. What is it about your videos? What is it about your writing? What is it about whatever that is going to get people to find you and stick with you? Novelty really helps, but sometimes it's not always novel. Sometimes it's just the way that you blend different elements of things people have already seen together to come up with something entertaining. As long as there is something that you can say, this is me, this is why somebody would come and watch my videos, read my posts, whatever. As long as there's something you can clearly identify as, this is why anyone would be interested in it, then you're off to a pretty good start. And then after that, it's just promotion. Have good content that's worth promoting in the first place. Have something you're proud of, something you're pleased with, something that you think other people will enjoy. And then it's a matter of posting about it on Facebook or on Twitter, blogging about your videos that you've posted separately. Cross-promotion is great. making it very easy for people to find the button where they can subscribe to your blog, making it really easy to get in contact with you if they've got questions about you, respond to your comments. It's amazing how many friends I've made who I've never met before because I responded to a couple of comments and then it turned into a full-blown conversation. And then you get people who are interested in your content but also interested in hanging out with you because you're fun to chat with, or you've got good insights, or you're funny, or whatever it is. Or maybe, you just leave a comment on a video somewhere and somebody says, wow, that's a really cool username he's got. I want to follow him back to his channel and just see what he's got. Just little ways to promote yourself. Just be active. It's sort of like you're forming relationships with people. You're hanging out in the community. It's not, I'm making this thing and then I want to become popular overnight. It's the connections that you make. It's how you nurture your fan base and how you build them up. So.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, Old School Lane, for example, it started back in 2011, and we didn't start getting really popular until at least the end of last year, October or November of 2013. That was when we hit our 100 member mark on our YouTube page. That was when we started getting more people following us on Facebook and Twitter. When people, do Let's Plays, or they do blogs, or they do video reviews, they expect them to, be the next Game Grumps, or be the next Nostalgia Critic, or be the next, whatever. And they expect them to have the same amount of fans, and they expect them to have do this for a living instead of just working at some job that they hate. But I just want to let you know that if you're planning on doing this for the fame and the popularity, then you're doing it for the wrong reasons. Those people, they do what they do is because they have a passion for it, because they love to do that. They love to discuss about video games. They love to discuss about movies and TV shows, whether it's blogging or videos or podcasts. You do it because you enjoy doing it. You don't do it because of trying to get popular. If you are planning on doing this because you like it, then I would suggest, go for it. We've had our inspirations. I mean, look at me. I mean, I never thought that, 2 years ago I would be speaking to Nathaniel right here. And I wrote about him in my top 100 influences. And
I'm honored, by the way.
And thank you. And not to mention, I didn't expect, 2 years ago when I first did the Nickelodeon tribute, I was going to get a hold of people such as Mark Summers or Maura Quirk or Mark Wiener or Craig Bartlett. When Kevin and I, when we first started, we were just doing little blogs. We were just doing podcasts because we didn't know how to do video editing. We just did things because we had a lot of things that we wanted to talk about. And we've been best friends for almost 20 years. And we had a lot of things that we felt that we wanted to share with everyone. And we may not be as big as, Cinemassacre, or we may not be as big as all those other, giant channels, but we do what we like, and if we have people who like us, then that's fantastic. We'll discuss about it. And the same with Nathaniel. I mean, even though that, Nathaniel is not as big as, say, Game Grumps, at least,
thanks a lot.
Well, I didn't mean it that way.
It's
I'm sorry. But I'm trying to bring a point that even though that, somebody doesn't have a gigantic fan base with like millions of subscribers, there's still a dedicated small fan base that just loves you just as much, and they would give you compliments and they would give you feedback. It's like, because of you, I'm doing, Let's Plays of Mega Man, or, because of you, I'm doing blogs. So it feels really nice when somebody does that.
Well, I have to tell you, and I was watching through the first episode of the Mega Man 2 and Mega Man 3 playthroughs that were on the PlayStation channel earlier today before the call, and I was impressed because I was sensing some of the influence because you were using special weapons as you were playing through the stages, and I was so pleased with that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I it's kind of funny because when everybody was talking about Mega Man 9, I was just looking up some sort of reviews or, just looking up some plays of Mega Man, and, I accidentally came across your channel, just so I can become better at Mega Man, and ever since I've been watching your videos, I've gotten progressively better at Mega Man, when at the time, I couldn't even defeat, like, one of the stages.
Well, I'll let you in on a little secret. When I was a wee tot, and I was first playing Mega Man 4, I couldn't beat anything. I couldn't beat anyone. I was lucky to get to the boss, let alone beat the boss. It got to the point where I could get to, I think, Skullman and Diveman were the only two that I could actually reach the end of their stage, and then I'd still get my butt kicked by them. And this was over and over and over again, but at the time, I'd beaten Crystallis, I had beaten Gradius thanks to Game Genie, and I technically beaten Super Mario Brothers, but didn't like it enough to really want to go back to it. So Mega Man 4 was the only game that I had. So naturally, having now started to get excited about video games, I was playing it compulsively. It was just, I need to play Mega Man. This is really fun. This is really good. And I was still awful at it. Awful. And I called in my family. I had my dad sitting there next to me, and I'm like, okay, or my mom, or whoever, they're sitting next to me. I'm like, okay, see that bar on the side of the screen? When it gets down to like 3 or 4 dots, tell me to use an E-Tank, because I can't watch the bar and fight the boss at the same time. And so I'm sitting there, and, my mom or my dad shout at me, like, use an E-Tank! I'm like, oh yeah! And then I pause, and I refill, and I finally beat the boss. And it was so amazing to beat that first boss, because then I had a special weapon. I'm like, I'm going to use this everywhere. And then I started playing around and experimenting, because I'm like, well, I know my Mega Buster isn't any good anywhere else because I can't get through these stages, but this weapon's new. I'm going to try this weapon. And then little by little, I'm starting to make more headway into more of the stages, and just by trying new things with this new weapon I have, and then each new weapon that I got. And then I started to get better about, okay, I don't need somebody sitting next to me to monitor my health, because now I can quickly do, the eye flick thing where you flick your eyes to the side, and then, okay, look at my health, I'm good. And then really get a feel how much damage things are doing to you, what are your chances of surviving this thing? Should you waste the E-Tank? Should you save it for the next life? And then just little by little starting to get a feel for the game, starting to play it more, and then playing some other Mega Man games and learning some new tips and tricks on those ones, and then just sort of synthesizing all of that. And so over time, I've gone from the panicky little gamer who could not get to Toadman, let alone beat Toadman, to where I am now. So it's all about the time and effort and the practice, and trying. If we're looking for Mega Man advice specifically, aside from blogging and YouTubing advice and stuff, it's use special weapons, try new things, try different tactics. If something is clearly not working, don't do it, do something else. And practice, do it over and over again if it looks like you're even getting close to a solution. And I've been doing that for years and have gotten so much better at the Mega Man games because of it.
Yeah, I can definitely see that, especially with every video that you release. You always show off your skills, and you always just show off the little secrets that the game has to offer. And whenever that you do your commentary, it sounds like that you're having a fun time.
I really am.
And from the looks of the comments below of every single one of your Let's Plays on YouTube, everybody seems to be having a fun time, and they're always giving you nice compliments and feedback. Which compliment do you have you had that you feel that really inspired you to keep going?
You know what? It's hard to pinpoint any one.
Well, it doesn't have to be any one.
I've gotten personal messages from people saying how much brighter their day has been because they were having a really crummy, lousy day, and then I posted my video, and they're like, this is the best thing ever. My day is so much better now. Thank you. I've gotten messages from people talking about how they were really awful at Mega Man, but they saw my video, and they said, I want to try and get better. And then they tried it, and they finally beat this game that they have not been able to beat for 10 years. Because I inspired them to go out and play this game. I've had people talking about how they really started to look at games differently because of some of the ways that I've analyzed games, some of the things that I've started to say. I think, I'm trying to remember, I think Nintendo Capri Sun, who does some Let's Plays as well, commented something along those lines on one of my videos at one point. Like, actual people who other people know who are popular have seen some of my videos and are aware of them. Just little things that come through every once in a while. Just the little blips of appreciation, as well as the big, long, gushing paragraphs of, I really love your work. I'm so happy. Thank you for recording this stuff. Just the little things and the big things are a constant motivator and a constant reaffirmation that what I'm doing is worthwhile, that people are enjoying it, and that it's worth continuing with. So I'm just, all of the big and the little comments have been very meaningful to me.
Yeah, and that sounds like a really great note to leave it by. Nathaniel, is there anything that you would like to plug or promote right before we go?
Well, of course, everything that you mentioned in the intro. I am a staff writer and editor for Gamecola.net. We do video game reviews of anything and everything outside the mainstream. We also have a YouTube channel, GCDOTNET, GC.net, where I've got some videos, most recently the blind playthrough with my wife of Mega Pony. And I've also got a personal blog, which has links to anything and everything I've basically ever been involved with online, which is nathanielhoover.weebly.com. And I'm hoping that I gave you that address right because it's just off the top of my head, and yes, nathanielhoover.weebly.com. So that's my shameless plug. You can call me Shameless Plug Man.
Okay. Oh, God. I just got that. Okay, well, that is probably a great way to start off 2014. Nathaniel, thank you so much for coming on by.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
And we hope to see you around soon on another episode of Casual Chat. So until then, we will see you later. So bye-bye.
And don't get eliminated.
Yes, don't get eliminated.